the failure at Suez marked the termination of the overseas epic of which Churchill, throughout his long life, had been the standard-bearer. Suez spoke finis to all for which Churchill had stood. Such, certainly, was my outlook as I came to the end of my education. Then, in a hot summer in New York City in 1957, a chance episode transformed my appreciation of the statesman under whom I had grown up. I had begun a journey through the United States, funded by a philanthropic American graduate of my Oxford college. I was waiting to join another beneficiary of the travelling scholarship he had established. It was the first time I had been by myself in a foreign country, previous expeditions to France having been spent with schoolmasters or family friends. The apartment I had been lent overlooked Union Square, then the centre of a drab commercial district. The owners were away, and I knew no one in the city. I was, for a few days, at loose ends, lonely and, in a post-adolescent way, depressed and disoriented. America was unsettling, materially so much smarter and more modern than backward, war-worn Britain, spiritually so much more energetic and self-confident. The Britain I had left a few weeks before was undeniably in decline, the America I had entered so evidently booming in wealth and in enjoyment of world power. My absent hosts belonged, moreover, to the American elite, the Ivy League, the social register, the chic world of New York intellectual life. The class of which they were members was about to inherit the earth, while mine, after a century of global dominance, was taking its farewell. I found, among their stock of long-playing records, another novelty to this British visitor, music to indulge self-induced melancholy, such as Beethoven's Eroica and Bruckner's Seventh Symphony. The heavy chords reinforced the lethargy that came with unfamiliar, semi-tropical heat. Then I turned up something else, a record called The War Speeches of Winston Churchill. What on earth, I asked myself, was anything so unchic, ponderous, and pompous doing among the possessions of smart New Yorkers? What could the ex-Prime Minister's long, punctuated periods have to say to them? Out of pure curiosity, for I was too young to remember Mr. Churchill in 1940, I put the disc on the turntable and began to listen. The effect was electrifying. The needle chose the track of Churchill's speech of May the 19th, 1940, broadcast to the nation by the BBC. The voice was instantly recognizable. The power, the inspiration of his words was not. "I speak to you for the first time as Prime Minister," he began. Today I can recite the passage by heart. Then it came to me with the same force as it must have done to his anxious listeners in the disastrous days of the Battle of France, when the Third Republic was about to give up the ghost, and the British Expeditionary Force, BEF, was already in full retreat to Dunkirk. "I speak to you for the first time as Prime Minister," pause, "at a solemn hour in the life of our country, of our empire, of our allies, and above all, of the cause of freedom." 3 heavy beats: country, empire, allies, and the dramatic rallentando, cause of freedom. I felt my spine stiffen. Then the voice changed tempo from rallentando to recitative. "A tremendous battle is raging in France and Flanders. The Germans—" Churchill had a way of pronouncing the word German that combined menace with contempt. "By a remarkable combination of air bombing and heavily armoured tanks—" Remarkable was a Churchillian adjective that often conveyed contempt also. "A remarkable example of modern art," was his verdict on the Graham Sutherland portrait of himself presented by Parliament in 1954. "Have broken through the French defences north of the Maginot Line, and strong columns of their armoured vehicles are ravaging the open country, which for the first day or two was without defenders. They have penetrated deeply and spread alarm and confusion in their track. Behind them there are now appearing infantry in lorries, and behind them, again, the large masses are moving forward." Even as the crisis pressed upon Churchill the Prime Minister, Churchill the soldier could not resist recounting the sweep and drama of military manoeuvre, with brilliant, if chilling, effect. Then the mood changed again to a call for national unity. "We have differed and quarrelled in the past, but now one bond unites us all, to wage war until victory is won, and never to surrender ourselves to servitude and shame, whatever the cost and agony may be." Finally there was a promise. "Conquer we must. Conquer we shall." The record ran on as I leaned on the window-sill in the heavy heat of a New York June evening. There followed the speech of June the 18th, 1940, delivered on the same day that the exiled de Gaulle made an appeal to his own people to fight for a free France and to believe in final victory. Churchill was in bulldog mood. "Hitler!" There was a spluttery, glottal pronunciation of that name which was to become familiar. "Knows that he will have to break us in this island or lose the war. If we can stand up to him." Echoes of Vitae Lampada, the Victorian poet Henry John Newbolt's epic of schoolboy sportsmanship, which had inspired more of the British than might care to admit to it. "All Europe may be free, and the life of the world may move forward into broad, sunlit uplands. But if we fail, then the whole world, including the United States, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age. Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duties, and so bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say, 'This was their finest hour.'" I was suffused with an unaccustomed sense of pride in country, and then with pride in common citizenship, with a man who, at a time when ordinary mortals might have looked for accommodation with an overpowering enemy, could feel such courage, and call for equal courage from those he led. That he represented the spirit of true leadership I thereafter had no doubt. The themes were constant. Those thrown down as a challenge in the darkest days, when Hitler's army loomed across the Channel, were repeated at every stage through the war's 5 years, recounted in the words the record repeated: hardship and agony, but also sunshine and hope, and the promise eventually of conquest and victory. In his first speech as Prime Minister to the House of Commons, he had offered only blood, toil, tears, and sweat. But he had proclaimed almost in the same breath a policy and an aim of breathtaking scope. "You ask, what is our policy? I will say, it is to wage war by sea, land, and air with all our might. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word: victory. Victory at all costs, victory in spite of all terror, victory however long and hard the road may be." That was said on May the 13th, 1940. On June the 4th, he made to the Commons the most celebrated speech of his life. The evacuation of the BEF from the beaches of Dunkirk was just reaching its end. Its soldiers had recrossed the Channel with little more than their rifles, leaving behind all the heavy equipment, guns, tanks, needed to meet an invasion of Britain by the Wehrmacht. There were no replacements at home, no reserves, no fortifications. A citizen militia, the Home Guard, belatedly called into being, was equipping itself with pitchforks and pikes. Heavy bombing was imminently anticipated, a cross-channel armada of German landing craft expected at any moment. The island was effectively defenceless. By any objective assessment, defeat stared Britain in the face, and all rational judgment was for making peace on any conditions offered. Churchill, however, rejected capitulation in absolute terms. "We shall not flag or fail," he insisted. "We shall go on to the end. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender."